My name is Harvey, and this is how one joke destroyed my marriage. There was a time in my life when everything felt wide open, full of promise. That's when I met Susan. From the very start, we shared one clear dream. We both wanted a big, loving family. Even before we got engaged, we'd spend hours picturing the life we wanted to build, imagining the chaos of dinner tables filled with chatter and playrooms cluttered with toys and laughter. I could already see myself guiding our son as he wobbled on his first bike, or tucking in our daughter with a storybook at night. Susan adored children just as much. She would scroll through videos of giggling toddlers, showing me her favorites and saying, "That'll be us someday." So when we finally tied the knot, we didn't hesitate. After years of imagining what our future could look like, we were ready to make it real. From the moment we exchanged vows, we started trying for a baby. At first, it was exciting. Every new month brought a fresh wave of hope. We turned it into something playful, guessing whether we'd have a boy or a girl, tossing around names from the baby books Susan brought home. We'd sit together for hours, wondering if our child would have my eyes or her smile, dreaming of what kind of parents we'd become. But month after month passed, and nothing changed. We weren't worried at first. Everyone said not to stress, that it happens when you least expect it. So we tried to stay lighthearted, trusting that our time would come. But as one year slipped into the next, and then another, the joy faded. Our guessing games stopped. The baby books were left untouched on a forgotten shelf. Each negative test felt like a quiet defeat, and the weight of it grew heavier with every cycle. By the beginning of the third year, silence had settled between us, a quiet, invisible wedge. The spark in Susan's eyes when we talked about kids had gone dim. When the subject came up, she'd either change it or force a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We couldn't keep pretending anymore. After 3 years of hoping and waiting, we finally saw a doctor. The process was simple: blood work, a few tests, standard stuff. We waited, anxious but still clinging to hope. Maybe it would be something easy, something that could be fixed with a pill or a new routine. But when the doctor sat us down, his words hit me like a freight train. "Harvey," he said gently, "your sperm count is critically low. Right now, the chances of natural conception are extremely slim." I sat there, stunned. My heart was racing, but I couldn't speak. Beside me, Susan just stared forward, motionless. The doctor continued, explaining there were still possibilities: diet changes, medications, supplements, but I barely registered it. My mind was locked on one simple truth. I couldn't give Susan the family we had dreamed about for years. That night, I lay in bed, wide awake, staring into the darkness. I felt hollow, useless. I had failed not just myself, but her. Susan squeezed my hand and told me we'd get through it together, that she wasn't leaving. I wanted to believe her. But in the days that followed, her actions began telling a different story. At first, I thought she was just struggling the same way I was. But then the small, sharp comments started slipping in. Phrases that sounded casual but felt like slaps. Over dinner one evening, she shook her head and said, "It's strange. We're both healthy. Why can't we just have a baby?" Another time, she muttered, "Maybe we waited too long. Maybe that was the mistake." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Each remark was a quiet dagger. I told myself not to read too much into it, that she was just hurting too. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. Her warmth toward me had cooled. She started coming home late, offering vague excuses: dinner with friends, going for a walk, needing space. I wanted to believe her, but it became too regular, too distant. Even when she was home, it felt like she wasn't really there. She used to kiss me good night. She used to fall asleep in my arms. Now, she barely glanced at me. Our home, once filled with dreams and laughter, had gone cold and quiet. I'd sit in the living room, staring at our photos, frozen memories of happier times. But the hope in those smiles had vanished. Eventually I asked, "Susan, are we okay?" She rubbed her forehead, tired and distant. "I don't know, Harvey. I wish things were different." That shattered me. I was doing everything I could. I followed the doctor's advice, changed my diet, exercised, took every supplement he recommended. I held on to every last thread of hope. But none of it was enough to save us. The silence between us grew unbearable. And when she did speak, I braced myself for what would come next. It was never cruel on the surface, but the words always carried weight. It's just hard seeing everyone else move forward while we're stuck. Maybe we're not meant to have children together. She never shouted. She didn't have to. Her disappointment was loud enough in the way she looked at me, or didn't. And then came the moment that ended everything. We were at a small gathering at her friend's house, just a relaxed backyard evening. Soft music, some drinks, light conversation. I wasn't in the mood, but Susan insisted we go. She seemed livelier than usual, laughing louder, sipping wine more freely than she used to. I hung back, half listening, trying to blend in. Then someone in the group mentioned they were expecting, and the room lit up with excitement. Congratulations, stories, advice. I felt the air grow heavy around me. These were the conversations I tried to avoid. Then someone turned to us and smiled. So, when will you two finally have a little one for us to spoil? Just a friendly joke. Harmless. Until Susan laughed. Oh, please, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Harvey's not even man enough to get me pregnant. The whole backyard went silent. Some looked at me with pity. Others looked away. But I had heard her. Everyone had. I didn't ask her why. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't say a word. I stood up, left the party, and walked away. I wasn't angry. I was done. When I got home, I pulled out a duffel bag and started packing. A few changes of clothes. My phone charger. My wallet. I didn't know where I was going yet, but I knew one thing. I wasn't staying. I stood for a moment, taking in the house that had once felt like a safe haven. Now, it felt more like a prison. For the first time in a long while, the silence wasn't hostile, it was peaceful. No underhanded remarks, no awkward attempts at conversation. Just quiet, and somehow, it felt like a relief. After walking away, I checked into a modest hotel on the far side of town. I shut off my phone the moment I arrived. When I powered it back on the next morning, the screen filled with notifications. Friends who had seen what happened the night before were checking in, offering support and a listening ear. Then came Susan's texts. The first was from the night before. Where are you? The next came early that morning. Are you really that upset over what I said? I was just drinking. I read it multiple times. Not a trace of remorse. No apology, just a deflection. I didn't respond. And once it became clear I wasn't going to, the messages stopped. A few days later, she found the letter I had left behind on her dresser. I stayed through the arguments, the blame, the cold silence. But if even the deepest hurt I carry is something you can mock, then I no longer belong here. She must have read it, because her silence broke. The calls started. The texts multiplied. She wanted to meet, to talk. But by then, I had nothing left to offer. I didn't respond. Roughly a week later, she received the divorce papers. That was the last message I ever sent. Leaving wasn't simple. Starting over never is. But step by step, I built a new version of myself. I moved to a different city and started from scratch. In the beginning, the quiet felt harsh, even lonely. But slowly, I started finding comfort in it. I learned how to enjoy being alone. I let go of the guilt I had carried for so long. Most importantly, I finally accepted that my worth wasn't defined by whether or not I could father a child. Then, when I least expected it, I met Naomi. She was unlike anyone I'd known, gentle, honest, patient. She never treated me like I was damaged. She didn't see my past as baggage, only a part of who I was. We took things slow. I had been hurt, and I wasn't in a rush to be vulnerable again. But Naomi never pushed. She gave me space, and slowly, she helped me feel whole again. About a year into our relationship, she sat across from me one evening, her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite name, nerves, maybe hope. Then she said it. "Harvey, I'm pregnant." I laughed softly, thinking she was teasing. But when I saw she wasn't smiling, just waiting, bracing herself, my amusement vanished. The word echoed in my mind. Pregnant. It didn't make sense. The doctors had told me the odds were practically non-existent. My fertility had been almost zero. My instinct reacted before my heart could catch up. "That's not possible," I said, sharper than I meant to. And then my mind leapt to the conclusion I didn't want to say aloud. "You cheated on me." The look on Naomi's face, hurt but calm, is something I'll never forget. She didn't shout, didn't cry. She just met my gaze and said, "I haven't been with anyone else. I'm certain you're the father." I wanted to trust her. I wanted to believe it. But I needed clarity. I asked for a paternity test. Naomi didn't flinch. "Do what you need to do," she said. "I understand." While we waited for the results, I barely slept. If the test confirmed the worst, I didn't know how I'd survive it. But if it proved I was the father, what then? When the results came in, I read the page once, then again. Then again. "You are the biological father." I must have stared at those words a dozen times. My hands trembled. My breathing turned shallow. How? Had the doctors been wrong all those years ago? Had something shifted? I needed answers. The next day, I made an appointment with a fertility clinic. The new tests were clear. My fertility had improved drastically. Whether it was the long-term changes to my lifestyle, the healing power of time, or something science couldn't quite explain, I wasn't infertile anymore. That realization hit me hard. If Susan had just waited, if she had stood beside me instead of tearing me down, we might have had the life we dreamed of. But as I looked at Naomi, this woman who had shown me love without conditions, I didn't feel regret. I felt gratitude. Susan and I had built our relationship on pressure, expectations, and buried resentment. But with Naomi, everything was different. Here I felt free, safe, loved. I never contacted Susan again after I left. She didn't try to find me, either. I don't know what became of her, if she found peace, if she had children with someone else, if she ever felt remorse. Maybe she still believes she did nothing wrong. But honestly, I don't need to know. Some chapters are better left closed. For years, I believed I was broken, that my inability to father a child made me less of a man. But it was never about biology. It was about how we face hardship together. About compassion. About loyalty. About respect. Susan had the chance to stand beside me, to hold my hand and say, "We'll get through this," and mean it. But she didn't. She let the pain twist her. She let bitterness grow, and in the end, she weaponized it. And some wounds, especially the ones inflicted by the person you trust most, don't heal with time. They leave scars. But I'm not angry anymore. I'm thankful. Because life gave me a second chance. I found someone who didn't need me to be perfect, just present. Someone who never once made me feel less for what I couldn't control. Someone who loved me fully, without expectations. And now, as I hold my child in my arms, I finally understand. I was never broken. I had just chosen the wrong person. Life has a funny way of giving us clarity when we need it most. We all experience moments when things fall apart, when plans fail, when we feel lost. But in those moments, how we treat the people we love reveals who we truly are. Love isn't just celebration in good times, it's patience in struggle, grace in failure, kindness in conflict. If you care for someone, you don't use their pain as ammunition. You don't let fleeting anger destroy something worth fighting for. Looking back, I see it clearly. Everything unfolded as it was meant to. But I'll leave you with one question. Have you ever experienced a moment when a few words changed everything, when something said couldn't be taken back? Feel free to share your story in the comments. You never know who it might help. And if someone you love needs to hear this, don't hesitate to pass it along.